I am recording this session because I want to post it on the website. I don't have one there. It was blank. And that would help people like Linda. Linda says she's having trouble staying connected because she's out in a rural area. But I said, well, maybe you could just watch one of the videos after. Hey, thanks, David. That was that best practices booklet? Yeah, David put it in the chat, that best practices booklet, by the way.
I did. Yeah, thank you.
So if you don't want to be on the video, just turn your video off and then you're not on the video. So again, I just want to emphasize that the contestant is the most important person, and that's why I wanted to put the workshop on, is to help some of the contestants to make sure that, again, make sure it's us standing on the international stage, not me, but one of our people, and then they have the best opportunity. And I always refer back to Mike Carr because he was last year's winner. The focus of this workshop is how to best prepare the contestants for the online platform. So it's not about how to write your speech. It's not about how to move around and where you should stand for what part of your speech. Although if there was enough interest, we could actually do that. And the idea of some of the future workshops were so some of the contestants could actually try out this platform and try to improve on it. I'm going to show you a short video. It's 3 minutes and 40 seconds long. And it's the international speech contestants from last August. And I just took little video clips of each one and I put a little explanation of what you could watch for. So the idea is you're watching for a neutral background, and every one of us tonight has a busy background. There's nothing neutral about our backgrounds. They're all telling us something. So look at these guys. They've got a neutral background. Watch their lighting, how much lighting they have. And if you look at the screen tonight, Jim's got some pretty bright lighting in front of him, but maybe he needs a little more from the sides. Anne Marie's lighting is pretty good. Stephen's is good. David's is good. Marion's good. Brenda's a little bit in the dark. So that's something, if you're competing, how do you want that lighting? And then just listen to the sound on these people that are competing or where their microphone's located. A lot of them have a lavalier mic. Just listen to the sound and where their mic is. How they're using the screen space. I'll put some comments on there. And how their camera's adjusting. And it's one of my little beefs about one of the cameras I have. It does too much this autofocus thing. It's always trying to focus. And this webcam in front of me, it has issues with different things with lighting and focus when you're getting too close. But here's this speech. It's 3 minutes and 40 seconds long, so just have a watch.
Toastmasters and guests, it is my pleasure to welcome International President-elect, Distinguished Toastmaster Richard E. Peck.
Welcome to the World Championship of Public Speaking.
I was 3 years old, going to preschool. My teacher was encouraging creative play.
It's 6 o'clock in the morning. After a sleepless overnight flight, I'm standing on the arrivals curb in the Orlando, Florida airport. My heart is in my throat.
If you're ready to change the world, but you don't know how, I have the key. It's just a question, but it's the most powerful question in the world. The question is, many amazing Black people. When my son was young, his best friend was Black.
Have you ever fallen in love in your dreams? As a teenager, I had the most unforgettable dream about the most incredible girl. Know you want me? She must be mine. I announced. My brothers protested. They wanted Michael Jackson.
All right, children, gather round. It's story time once again. I know little Susie was asking me about what life was like when I was a young man. I think sometimes she doesn't think I was ever a young, but he cannot take away its heart. Well, I know that there's been a lot of trouble and
You should have heard what she said to me. Maureen, look at you. You are fat, ugly, and stupid.
I was spellbound as I watched the sheriff who had just been shot slide back, open that heavy metal door, stagger forward a couple of steps, look deep into the camera and say,
Growing up in Australia as a little Chinese boy, my parents always told me that there were three things I could be.
Yeah, so I found that all very interesting. And I just wanted, one comment was about location. You'll notice their hands weren't touching the sides of the screen. That's just something I'll mention about distance later on. But Toastmasters tells you that judges should not take into consideration a contestant's audio or video quality, and that's in that best practices item that David sent you there in the chat. But judging is subjective, it's people. So contestants really need to make sure they have a really good neutral background, like all of those folks had nice backgrounds. They need great lighting. You need to have some really good lighting, and you have to have awesome sound quality and a high definition camera, for sure a high definition camera, and really good sound. And it was unfortunate with the one competitor there, it was out of sync. And I did say that on one note there that it looked like Sherwood was looking at his notes. He was looking to the side. And then I got thinking after, maybe he was looking for the timer. He might be using two screens, or he could have a camera in front of him and a computer over beside him, and he's actually looking for the timing lights. Hard to say, though, what was actually happening there. But the contestants have to have a really good presence and understanding of that space they're working in. So again, neutral background, great lighting, awesome sound quality, and a high definition camera. So just talking about a neutral background, I've got here no virtual background. Toastmasters, again, in this best practices, considers a background to be a prop. So if I'm talking about mountain skiing, I might have the Rocky Mountains behind me. If I'm talking about the farm I grew up on as a child, I might have the farm behind me. I went to contests last fall where one competitor had cartoons behind him. It had nothing to do with the speech. It had nothing to do with any of it. I found it distracting because it was such a busy screen with all these cartoons. And just like Marion was saying earlier, the fingers start to disappear, or some of the head disappears, or their arm disappears. Like I'm using high quality blue screen here, and the fingers usually stay pretty good. But even if you get moving fast, you can lose them because Zoom over here that we're on is running about 15 frames per second. And this camera that I'm using here is running 30 frames per second. So Zoom is only showing you half of what I'm doing. So that's why you start to lose some of the imaging. And that's why we try to get all the video turned off, so you just have the contestant and the timer so that you don't have disappearing appendages and things like that. Now, you will want to use the virtual background if it's part of your speech, but you certainly don't need it for table topics. You're better off with just a neutral background. Try and get something like a gray wall. I've been trying gray curtains here. You see me once in a while with these drapes I pull out. They're just a gray curtain. I don't like them, but at least they're neutral. Beige is good. Remove any pictures or unnecessary items. One of the videos there, we actually saw the fellow's ceiling light, which told me that the camera was low looking upwards. And he also had his, he was maybe using a cell phone because the image was turned portrait instead of landscape. So we'll just talk about some lighting. And this is something I learned at Shaw last year when they were giving us all the training on how to do a TV program, produce the program, light the program, put the sound out there, is to use 3-point lighting. So you have the subject in front of you, you have a light shining at you, and then the camera's a little bit off to the side. That gives you good lighting in front. Then they like to have a fill light from the side so it's filling all those gaps that are maybe shaded. And then they have a light above and behind you to give your shoulders and hairline some outline. And it's really good for green screen work, but it's great for this kind of a picture too, because my shoulders should be a little bit lit up from behind as well. It gives me a better definition. You want to make sure they're all the same color temperature. You want them above eye level so you don't have too much reflecting in your glasses. And I'm limited what I can do here, but I do have a light up in front. And you want none of them to shine directly at the camera. So I'm just going to show you a video of how I have my room set up here with the lighting. Okay, looking at my case, just above my computer in front of me, there's a light there, and it's actually covered with 2 paper towels just to diffuse the light because it's so bright. And if you look behind me up on top, I've got a light on top of the railing there, and I've got another light on top there, and I've got the room light. So when you look at this place, it's like looking at a movie studio. Well, you know, I actually meant the TV studio, but whatever, close enough, right? I don't have the ceiling light on today because I noticed that if I leave the ceiling light off, this blue screen works better for me, so I actually have that off. But I did mention color temperature. What I'm running is these daylight bulbs, so they're the closest thing to daylight at an affordable price, and use all the same bulbs lighting you from different sides. You want the same color temperature. So I'm using 5,000 Kelvin is what I'm using. You can buy them in sets of 3 at Rona. I bought the last ones I bought, they sell them at the dollar store actually as a single bulb. And I cover up my windows in the daytime. I actually cover up my windows and I'm using 100% artificial light. And that's because I like to use that blue screen behind me. If I get any sunlight in, it's a different temperature than the daylight bulbs, and it'll give me troubles with the blue screen, but I do want to light myself up naturally, and this is probably the best way I've found. The other thing is camera location. So you want that camera at eye level. Right now I'm looking at my camera, it's at eye level. And I'm not always looking at it because sometimes I'm looking at you, I'm looking at the notes. But if you're doing the speech competition, you have to practice looking right at that camera because you want the eye contact. And if you're doing a speech that you've prepared, there's no reason not to be looking at the camera unless you're looking for the timing devices. So a great way to compete is standing, so you have full movement. You noticed all those international speakers were standing and able to move around. Some of the contests I went to last fall, some of the contestants sat just like I am today. And that doesn't give you a good range of movement. I don't think it even gives you good energy usage. So standing would be better. A distance will depend on the other contestants. And if you read in the best practices, when the contest chair is briefing the contestants, they actually get them to stand a certain distance and see how that works, and stand a little bit further and see how it works. So what they would do is, I would start tonight, if I was looking at all you guys, I would start with David Woodcock and say, how far can you stand back because you're wired to the computer? And if David could only stand 4 feet back, well, Stephen's wired as well. If you can only go 4 feet back, we all compete from that same distance. And you take, and Jim, you're wired, are you as well? Wire connection, yeah. So you get all the contestants, okay, try to stand 4 feet back, 5 feet back, and then everybody would compete from that same distance. What I figured from the Toastmasters that were competing in the international, because they could reach out with their arms and not touch the side of the screens, they were about 6 feet back. 5 or 6 feet would give you that width that they had. But again, it's limited. If you've got a speaker that can only go 3 feet back because they're wired to the computer, then everybody's going to speak from 3 feet back. Type of camera, I throw that in here as well. I'm using a webcam on top of my computer. You could use the webcam, use a high definition one, 1080p is a good one to use. You can use smartphones. If you go into the Toastmasters online best practices, they discourage you from using a smartphone. And there's a couple of reasons. I'll show you one here right away, but the last group brought up another good reason is if you're presenting and there's a phone call, it can lock you up. That happened to Glenn Wart there last week or something. He was on one and it actually locked up, and that's a good point. So you'd want to make sure you're not taking incoming calls if you're using your smartphone. The reason I would almost encourage people to use a smartphone, I'm not sure about your house, but in my house, that's the best camera I have. Aside from, I've got another one here that I can use, but I want to show you what happens with a smartphone. So the best way to show you this is with an example. So we'll go down to, I've got my Huawei phone on here. Okay, and you can see the timer's displayed very large, and that's me competing down in the corner, and that's a very tiny picture, almost the size of my finger. If I try to make me bigger, then look at the size of the timer down there. It's so tiny. Now imagine if I'm standing a few feet back. And the other thing is you only see the display for those two. Like the cell phones are kind of funny. You may see 1 or 2 people on there, and in that case I saw me speaking either small. If I was small and trying to watch my gestures, that could be tough on me. So that is another item, but I wouldn't not use it just because of that. I mean, you have to adjust. If you make the timing bigger, you know where you can stand and move. And if I've always said, if you practice that international speech, you should be able to do it just fine. The other thing you can use is a DSLR. I've got that up there, and the video cam. So every once in a while I use my video cam. I don't have it hooked up tonight, but you can actually get ways to hook those cameras up. A DSLR would be a fantastic camera to use. I don't use mine because it tries to hunt a little bit for the focus. And that one where Sherwood was talking about the kids and doing the storytelling, his camera was doing a bit of hunting. Now again, judges are not supposed to take video quality and sound quality into they're not supposed to consider it when they're judging, but judges are subjective. You know, they may just say, well, they didn't do so well. You want a quality camera, good sound pickup. So we'll talk about the sound next. The best thing is to have a lavalier mic. You saw 3 or 4 of them had a lavalier mic. One had the earbuds in where the microphone was in the earbud. That worked very well. Smartphones work fantastic. Something that's going to pick up your sound well. This Logitech webcam seems to pick up the sound pretty well. The webcams have built-in mics, and then it all depends how far away you get from the microphone. If you can still hear me from 5 feet away, maybe I can compete here. But I usually use a wired lavalier mic. I've got one. The one I like is, it's a little creative one. And this has about a 7-foot cord on it. I've got some with longer cords. I was telling people if you want to go out and buy one, you know, you can buy them on Best Buy, Amazon, eBay. You can get some pretty good quality for $30, $40, $50 maximum. Gives you some pretty good quality. You can get some really terrible junk for $10 and less. And then you just have to try them. Try each microphone and see how it works. I still like the smartphone because they pick up the sound really well. And I say that because I was always making all those videos and I used different devices to make the videos. And I found the smartphones really good for picking up sound. And you can actually add a lavalier mic to them as well. The only thing you have to worry about is the plug. Like I'm showing there, that's a stereo plug, but you can get this is a mono plug I have here. The mono plug works with my computer. The stereo plug works with my cell phone. What have we got here? During the contest, this is what you should see. So I'm just showing you during the contest. We saw these before in the other workshop. This is what you're going to see. The contestant should see this, is what they should see, and that's, they just do it by setting something on their own screen. So if the contestant just wants to see these two, they have to set it that way. And then I say a neutral background. So I chose kind of a beige background for a neutral background. This could work, but I always have to worry about the green screen. It's not too bad, but you do see some blue if I move too fast. And that would be something. If I was competing and using the blue screen, I would move slower. Some other contestant concerns. You have to think about whether you're going to be wired versus Wi-Fi. You can use Wi-Fi, but depending where you are in the house, you may have less service. So you should do speed tests throughout the house and find out where it is best to compete because of distance issues. It's still nicer if you're wired because you can have all of your bandwidth coming through. A backup device. They tell all the contestants to have a backup device, and that would be, I've got a laptop and a tablet, and I might want that because if my computer locks up, I may have to get back on to finish the competition with something else. So it's good to have a backup device. They say you should keep the Zoom link really close. The district set the time as 4 minutes. If you happen to get lost during the meeting, you lose connection, you want to get back on, you have 4 minutes to get back on before they disqualify you. And that could happen as easy as leaving the breakout room and hitting the wrong button, and you leave the meeting. You should try to limit distractions. I say make sure you don't have dogs in a room and pets or husbands or wives. Know your options when technology fails and just keep trying it. Make sure you practice. This is that online speech contest best practices. It's a good item to get, item number 479. David put it in the chat, thank you. So it's there for us.
Hey Lloyd, just a comment.
Yep.
Just a comment here about the contest chair and the timer. So what I believe is supposed to happen is that when the disconnection happens and the contestant is no longer in the room, something happens, they've left, then the contest chair has to instruct the timer that they have 4 minutes. So you can keep track of that 4 minutes so that, we're aware that, okay, this person has 4 minutes. Well, they came back and it was 4 minutes and 20.
That's, yeah.
Well, so there has to be that communication as well in a time of when something fails.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because at times it's going to seem unfair, I think, but you have to have something, right?
You have to have something.
I had told in my journeys to these other districts, some districts went 10 minutes, some went 5 minutes, some didn't put a time on it. Toastmasters in this best practices said the chief judge will say what the time is. And that's pretty ambiguous. It's, one contest could be 2 minutes, one contest 20 minutes. What's the difference? So the district came up with 4 minutes. Makes it fair for everyone. Because you do need to have some kind of a time limit. So that's a good booklet to get. It tells you everything about the contest, judges briefing, contestants briefings, how to run the contest. Lots of good information. And then you want to practice with the technology, and that's why I say it's nice if you can get the contestants on to Zoom and let them practice it, especially if they haven't had a lot of practice with it. And it's also good to give them some advice. You can say, yeah, you look good there, or maybe you could try this or try that, and help them out with that. Oh, and then I throw in that last slide. And if you have some spare time, write a speech. Yeah. So I put everything on my website at justholler.com/contest. And if we actually go through all of this, hopefully, one of us is on the winning stage at the end. Ooh. Oh, isn't that cool?